Okay,
Um,
so we're going on now with Astra Noel. And Astra, you're going to give us just a little breakdown of the pieces that you studied, and then the floor is yours.
all right, so good morning, everybody. And the pieces that I went through in no particular order are Iron Love, done by St. Mary's College Theatre Orchestra, so a secondary school band, arranged by Quasimo in 2019. Get Something and Wave, from Super Blue, done by All Stars and arranged by Anthony Guerra from 1991. No No We Ain't Going Home, sung by Tambu and played by Redemption Sound Setters, um, arranged by Toby and Shepard in 2016. The Hammer by David Rudder, um, played by All Stars and arranged by Smooth in 1986. Wap Coquier, sung by Shadow, played by Despers, arranged by Clive Bradley from 2004. And then another Clive Bradley Despers arrangement from 2001, You're Looking for Horn, also from Shadow. This Feeling Nice, by Bugsy, played by Phase 2, of course, and from 1987. Sweet Soca Man by NLCB Valley Harps, arranged by Michelle Huggins Watts from 2018. Free Up, done by Joy Landers, sung by Tambu, and arranged by Kareem Brown from 2014. And Fire Down Below, arranged by Ken Professor Fillmore, and played by Fawn Claire, done in 1989. Yeah? Okay, so I will say that I have listened to all of them, but I haven't necessarily analyzed all of them at the same depth at this point. To be able to collect some general, trends and ideas that I can talk about. Let me just get my little sheet here. And I've also discovered while I was listening that I think I had a lot more personal bias than I realized when it comes to panorama arrangements. And it's interesting as somebody who's supposed to be trying to analyze this as dispassionately as possible, to not let what you think should be happening, or what you like or what you don't like, or what you find is overused or irritating, or whatever, or what you really like. Um, chromatic runs. I'm talking about you, among other things. Yeah. So two. If I have to mention, if I think about two pet peeves immediately, um, some of the and listen, I understand as an arranger and a composer, chromaticism it's a very useful tool. It sounds great and fun, and when you're trying modulation, sometimes it just makes life a lot easier. And I know it sounds good, but there's I found, especially because my arrangement spans quite a large time period, from the earliest ones were 1984, 1986 to as recent as 2019. I've gotten a chance to observe some of the changes in the trends of the arrangements, and definitely that use of chromaticism it's always been there, but it's a lot more frequent now, almost to the point where it's a little overused. Another thing that I found that is a lot um not overused, but it's definitely a feature. Like, you can guarantee it's going to show up in almost every pattern arrangement, especially newer ones. Is that use of the subito piano to crescendo. I don't know if it's a function of this thing. It's dramatic and it sounds nice. Perhaps also because it helps with maybe it's in the rules that they think that it's part of it helps with the dynamics now. So it sounds good, but you have to be sparing in the use of it. That's all I'll say. All right. So aside from that, generally speaking, when you're talking about structure, I found that in the generic structure that we came up with generally does suffice for most of them, with some variation, with a variation sort of within the sections. And I know several other people mentioned that as well. So you do have your basic, intro, development, etc., 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 etc. But inside there, particularly in the development and the recapitulation sections, you can get a lot of variation with everything from style changes, tempo changes, differences in where the melody is placed, A lot more of the rhythmic kind of motifs coming in, all the hammer strokes, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of room for play inside of there. And I think it was Daniel who said in particular that it's probably not even necessarily useful to try to break that down anymore. We might be boxing ourselves in trying to define that too much. I also noted, and I'm not sure exactly what year it was that the rules about the length of the panorama arrangement changed from, I think it was from 10 minutes to 8 minutes or something like that. But those extra 2 minutes make a lot of difference in what can be done. And I hesitate to say that one is better than the other, but I definitely noticed when I was listening to some of the longer, older style ones that, you know, you're kind of listening and you realize, wait, no, the song's still good. You know, and there's so much that they can do, particularly in the development section. The arranger has a lot more space for you know, just different kinds of ideas, and to get away from some of the sort of tried and true tropes that they know will get them through. You know, they have space for exploration and experimentation, I think, that they won't have when they shave off the 2 minutes. And I would love to know what was the rationale for shaving off the 2 minutes in the first place. One out of the different several different pieces, I think I kind of zeroed in on a couple that I found had particularly interesting features that kind of represent the whole, but they sort of show them more explicitly. One of the ones that I really particularly enjoyed listening to was Wap Cookie by Despers, arranged by Clive Bradley. Bradley uses some very interesting chromatic descending flourishes. Not just like a chromatic scale, but kind of like, I don't know if you can hear the keyboard, but kind of like that. Just short, that he sort of just kind of, I know, it felt kind of like if I had to take a visual of it, it was kind of like almost like just dotting some ice and sugar on top, just a little bit. But enough to be effective just in the right places where he put them. I also noticed with this particular arrangement a lot of use of that kind of walking bass standard calypso progression. Oh gosh, let me pull that way. Oh god, sorry. That, right? He uses that a lot as the grounding in the background pans to allow all sorts of other different aspects of his arrangement and his ideas to kind of flourish on top of that. And generally his chord orchestrations, Bradley's chord orchestrations, the way that he spreads out the music amongst the pans, and the chord changes, what he chooses are very interesting. And I wonder if that is partially influenced by his piano background. If he thinks chordally in that way, if that could have helped. I'd like to think as a pianist that maybe that's true. I also, he had a particular innovation in this arrangement as well, where he used chanting. So he had the players actually saying, you know, what cook, yeah, why, and then the pans would respond. Sometimes the pans would respond with a similar melodic motif, or sometimes the rhythm section would respond as well with the same rhythmic thing. That went on for quite some time. Also, something I observed that I wasn't really expecting is that there's a lot more unison playing than I would have thought. I think maybe now, and maybe it's particularly Bradley's style in particular, but I think now there seems to be a lot more trend to, okay, so you start off and you play the verse and chorus maybe in unison, but you get that out of the way as quickly as possible, and then you start arranging things all over the place and putting harmony and lots of layers. But I found that he seemed to be very comfortable with big unison passages for long periods of time. And, you know, to be honest, I kind of felt a little nervous, like, is he going to put something under there? Is he going to, you know, change it up? But there was no need to be nervous, because when he did go to a different section and use different devices and do different harmony, it was more, in a way, it was more effective, because you had the contrast of the unison, and you really got a chance to establish and enjoy the melody, I think, a lot more. The baseline melody. All right. Another piece that I particularly focused on was Get Something and Wave by All Stars, arranged by Anthony Guerra. What I really noticed in here was a use of the background to play the melody. And in a really meaningful way. It sounded more like the cellos and maybe some of the guitars, but probably the cellos mainly. While the front line were playing, it did a little flourishes and embellishments and little runs and so. But it was what's the word boy? It was structurally intelligent, I think, at that point in his arrangement, to put the melody into the background and yet somehow still have it feature. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it didn't sound like, okay, so we just shoved it over there so we could show off the tenors playing runs or whatever. It actually really helped to create a nice foundation for what they were doing on top. And then I think the third piece that really stood out for me so far was Bugsy's This Feeling Nice, and the piece he was playing, which is Bugsy's, the original Calypso is Bugsy's composition. And then he also arranged it for phase 2. And even that as a question, and while I'm doing the analysis, I'm thinking about the integrity of arranging your own composition, and if that gives you an advantage, or if you end up I don't know, too biased or too when you're too close to the material, sort of. Yeah, so I wonder, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that there should be some sort of mandate that they shouldn't be able to arrange their own composition, but I just wonder about the quality, and I think I might want to do some more comparison and thought about that, because I know that Bugsy, quite frankly, Bugsy Master do that. He does that all the time. Yeah, he composes stuff and then he arranges it. And he's been allowed to do it for years. And I don't know if we're better or worse off for it, but it's Bugsy, so one of the devices that I found was that he used that was interesting in this. I did not have a name for it. I don't think it was in our lexicon so far. But it sort of came out of left field because it didn't even sound like a standard panorama trope. It was a kind of what I put in my notes here. I'll just read what I put in my notes here. A Hollywood cartoony stage musical melodic progression, which is what I wrote only to help me remember what does I mean when I say it. And it kind of sounded like that kind of kind of show tune kind of sound that to me sort of came out of nowhere in the middle of this. And that was used as the just the end of the introduction of this arrangement to get into the main statement of the verse. And as I said, it seemed to have come out of nowhere and yet seemed to be extremely effective. And I thought it was interesting to just observe use of, let's call it, foreign type styles or tropes in our arrangements. Yes. And one of the last things I would say that was really particularly interesting to me in this arrangement, in this book's arrangement, he had some, here comes another phrase again, I don't quite know how to say it. It was like a chromatic descending pattern, but it was in thirds, and it was a kind of a punchy jazz style, kind of something like like that. But what really made it interesting is he layered that over that sort of that calypso, that old calypso sort of African I don't know how to describe it. I don't know the name, but the the dum 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 da dum da dum 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 da 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 dum that we all know. Somehow he managed to make those two fit together. And I'm really not sure how. So he established the African beat first, and then he put the jazz punchy thing over it. And I thought that was particularly an interesting layering of texture, as well as different ideas. And I think I can pause there for now. I had a few other things, but those are generally the trend of my observations and the ones that I particularly thought jumped out at me so far.
Okay. Jirel is suggesting rhythm of the people. It might be what you were thinking about, but I'm not sure. I wanted to jump on, you expressed a bit of cognitive dissonance when you were talking about the melody being in the backline instruments, right? The background instruments. And so it kind of shook you a little bit because here are these background instruments, but you have the melody there and the melody is somehow foregrounded, right? And this is one of the reasons why I use, just for my own peace of mind, I don't say foreground and background instruments. I say upper, mid, and low voices, because that helps me when I'm saying something is in the foreground and something is in the background. I literally mean, what does the audience hear first and why, right? So normally the front line is the front line because the melody is there. But sometimes the melody is not in the front line. The front line now is playing a background role. See what I'm saying? So for my peace of mind, cognitively, I refer to the instruments in groups by the tone of voice, whether it's an upper voice, a middle voice, or a low voice. That helps me be able to use terms like foreground and background to literally talk about, what's close to the camera, what's far away from the camera. So foreground, background. And it doesn't matter who is in the foreground. What matters is that the composer wants that sound in the foreground, right? And I use the term composer not interchangeably with arranger, because I really, in my core, I believe that these people are composers creating a derivative work based on a pre-existing work. But I don't think it's as simple as arranging. We call it arranging because that's the history of what we talk about. But I call the people who do that arranging composers. And we'll see if that sticks, because I think using the term composer respects their craft more than just the word arranger, because I believe that words have meaning, they have power. So I just wanted to let you know that that's how I conceptualize things. I'm not telling you how to conceptualize it for yourself, because I want this study to grow in an organic way. But just to help myself navigate through these things, I use those things. Now, you also talked about the cartoony thing, right? That actually is a sequence. And the thing with the thirds, also another sequence. So when you think of the definition of a sequence, right, in music, it is a pattern that is repeated a step up or a step down from the original in sequence. So as soon as you see that, it doesn't matter what form the pattern is. Once you see it appear again, higher or lower, then you have a sequence going on. So that provides a structure within which you can now start to describe these occurrences in the music, right? They're sequences. And then you say, well, this is an ascending chromatic sequence, or this is a descending chromatic sequence in thirds, or stuff like that. This is it's a flourish, right? A melodic flourish, very quick, but repeated downwards in sequence at intervals and of a beat or 2 beats or every measure or whatever. You just describe it in the most generic terms that you can, to give the picture of what's there. And to help you, you just play a little 5-second excerpt, 10-second excerpt, or exactly what you were doing on the keyboard, you play it out, right? So very good presentation. Any questions for any of the people so far that have presented? Or comments? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording here.